The wind, or what passed for wind on Laurentia, a faint hum of charged particles brushing against metal and crystal, carried the acrid scent of burned circuits and scorched soil. Sorali stepped over a twisted hull of what might once have been a hovercraft, her long ears flicking back and forth as though they had a mind of their own, twitching at the faint crackle of energy still arcing from a shattered power conduit. She muttered under her breath, "Really, Alara, I leave you for 5 years, and the planet redecorates itself in death and sparks. Thanks a lot." Her words were more complaint than accusation, a habit she had developed to survive the daily chorus of ruined cities and mourning ghosts. The memorial wall loomed ahead, a lattice of light panels that spelled the names of the fallen in characters that shimmered faintly, as if alive. She reached out and traced a name with the tip of her finger, feeling the subtle vibration that ran through the panels. "Ilara, not here. Of course," she said with a half-smile, shaking her head. "Always taking the scenic route in life." She laughed softly, though her laughter carried the weight of years spent staring at empty horizons, hoping for something she no longer dared to name. She moved down the street, careful to avoid puddles of liquid crystal that had frozen into jagged shapes overnight. The occasional drone word passed, surveying the ruins like an overzealous librarian obsessed with cataloging catastrophe. "At least someone's organized," she said, swiping a hovering data pad from a nearby stand. "Even if it is a buzzing drone with questionable taste in efficiency." She tapped through reports of the day's salvage missions and recovery efforts, ignoring the bland statistics about fuel reserves and energy cores. Her mind was elsewhere, chasing faint rumors of movement near the atmosphere's edge, whispers of unidentified ships. A human among the survivors. Ridiculous, she told herself, and yet she couldn't resist imagining the chaos of that scenario. By mid-morning, she found herself in the cantina, a half-ruined structure that somehow still clung to life with dangling neon signs and a stubborn aroma of recycled coffee. Survivors milled about, swapping tales that were equal parts heroic and absurd. One grizzled pilot recounted how he had accidentally ignited the emergency alarm while brewing a pot of coffee, sending the entire sector into a 20-minute panic over what he insisted was just caffeine. Sorali smirked, settling into a cracked booth, letting herself be amused for the first time that day. "At least someone's consistent," she muttered, and her ears twitched at the laughter of those around her, a melody that felt both foreign and comforting. A waitress drone hovered past, spilling a tray of fluorescent drinks as it did. "Gravity's optional, coffee is not," Sorali said, and the drone beeped indignantly as if scolding her for the joke. She raised a hand, gesturing to the corner of the room where a table of young recruits attempted to assemble a hovering chess set. The pieces occasionally floated out the window, and one unfortunate knight had lodged itself firmly in a wall, sparkling ominously. Sorali chuckled. "Ah, young geniuses, you're a danger to yourselves and the fabric of spacetime." Then came the ripple through the cantina, subtle at first, a hum that didn't belong to the drones or the faulty wiring. She froze, listening. Something about the signal pattern was human. Her brows shot up. "No, no, 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 that's not." The hum intensified, resolving into a coherent transmission, part alien modulation, part distinctly human inflection. She leaned closer to the comm terminal, muttering to herself about how anyone could possibly encode a greeting that sounded suspiciously like a bad knock-knock joke across two species. Outside, the air shimmered as a small transport ship descended, kicking up crystal dust in tiny storms. Sorali's ears flattened in irritation at the sudden disturbance and then quirked forward in fascination. The craft landed with a hiss, and from it emerged two figures. One unmistakably human, tall and awkward in the way humans tended to be when far from their own gravity, and the other. Well, Sorali felt her breath catch, then nearly laughed at the audacity of it, her daughter. Ilara strode forward, wearing a combination of military-issue armor and scavenger gear that somehow made her look both battle-hardened and fashionably indifferent. Sorali blinked, once, twice. "Excuse me," she said to no one in particular. "Did I just hallucinate my daughter stepping out of a spaceship with a human sidekick?" She stepped forward, her ears twitching with nervous excitement. "Because I've had stranger days, sure, but not quite this strange." The human fumbled, knocking a small toolbox over, muttering something in a language Sorali barely recognized as apology. Alara laughed, the sound bright and familiar, cutting through the tension like sunlight through the clouds of war. "Mom," Alara said, grinning as if the years of absence were merely a bad joke she was now sharing with her. "Miss me?" Sorali's first instinct was disbelief. Her second was irritation. "Missed you," she said, pinching the bridge of her nose. "I've been living in post-apocalyptic real estate, counting melted droids and sarcastic ghosts, and you're telling me you've been thriving." She gestured at the human who shifted nervously and attempted a bow, only to stumble over a piece of debris. "And this?" she added. Alara chuckled, elbowing the human lightly. "He insists on coming with me. Think of him as insurance." Sorali raised an eyebrow. Insurance against what? Galactic boredom. She couldn't help but smirk despite the rapid beating of her heart. The absurdity of it, the humor tangled with years of grief, created a strange, electric energy around them. She reached out, touching Alara's arm, noting the warmth, the undeniable reality of her presence. The human attempted to speak again, nervously. "I promise I'm not dangerous most of the time." Sorali snorted. "Most of the time, good to know, that's comforting." Her ears flicked forward, a gesture of amused caution. "Well then, welcome to my planet. Try not to trip over history while you're at it." And in that moment, among the ruins, the humming energy fields, and the flickering memorial lights, the first genuine laughter in years erupted from Sorali, echoing through the fractured city. Somewhere between past grief and improbable reunions, the spark of hope ignited, and the story of their return, strange, humorous, and undeniably human, began to unfold. The wind, or whatever passed for it here, seemed to shift with approval, brushing sparks of crystal dust across their boots, as if the planet itself had decided that maybe, just maybe, a little chaos mixed with laughter was exactly what the future needed. Sorali led them through the fractured streets of Lorinthia, her long ears twitching at every flicker of movement. The city was a skeleton draped in the remnants of neon light, and every corner whispered stories of battles past, though she walked with a sort of cautious amusement, imagining her daughter's return like a cosmic prank. Alara strode ahead confidently, her scavenger military hybrid outfit catching glimmers of sunlight that pierced the cracked skyline, while the human stumbled along behind her, attempting to mimic her grace, but managing only the awkward sway of someone learning the rules of gravity all over again. "You move like a cantina chair on stilts," Sorali muttered, and the human blushed fiercely. "I'm flexible," he offered weakly. "Sure," Sorali said, eyes glinting with humor, "flexible in a way that could implode the timeline if you're not careful." They reached the edge of the lower city, where the ground opened into a valley filled with bioluminescent flora. The plants pulsed faintly, casting dancing shadows across ruined walls and floating debris. Alara knelt, plucking a crystallized flower and sniffing it. "Smells like burnt toast," she said, scrunching her nose. "Close enough," Sorali replied, crouching beside her and letting her ears brush against the ground, sensing subtle vibrations in the crystal. The human crouched too, knocking over a glowing fern that rolled like a ball across the terrain. "Careful," Sorali barked, though her tone was half amusement, half exasperation. "This isn't a toy, well, technically it is a weapon if you step on the wrong one." They pressed onward, following faint tracks of energy residue from old battles. Sorali scanned the area with her multi-lens ocular implant, detecting faint heat signatures that suggested remnants of automated defense drones still operational. Ah, she muttered, ghosts of war that never learned to retire, how considerate of them. She waved the human over. See those sparks dancing on the left, don't touch, that one's sarcastic. The human laughed nervously and in doing so tripped over a piece of levitating metal debris, landing on his hands and knees. Graceful, Sorali noted dryly, flicking a small grav-dust speck off his shoulder. Ilara chuckled and offered her hand to help him up, her smile a sharp reminder of everything Sorali had missed, and how absurdly human it was that laughter could pierce layers of grief. As they navigated the valley, an abandoned shuttle suddenly sparked to life nearby, its panels sliding open like metallic petals. A holographic interface flickered, projecting the long-dead captain's log. Sorali leaned closer, reading the data. Mission report. Failed rescue operation due to, oh, wonderful, fusion reactor meltdown and general incompetence of everyone involved. She laughed, a short, sharp bark that startled a hovering insectoid creature into spiraling away. At least someone kept a sense of humor in death, she said. Ilara smirked. Reassuring, isn't it? I guess some things never change. The human peeked at the display, eyes wide. So, this is like reading someone's diary but with explosions, he asked. Sorali pinched the bridge of her nose. Exactly. Welcome to war-era entertainment. By mid-afternoon, they reached a ridge overlooking the old city center, where floating wreckage of what once had been a command tower hung in precarious arcs. Sorali's eyes scanned the area, noting the faint shimmer of a nearby energy conduit. She pointed at it. That's a junction still active. Touch it wrong and we get fireworks. Spectacular, lethal, and very inconvenient. Ilara nodded, stepping carefully. The human attempted to mirror her movements and promptly activated a low-level energy pulse, causing a small explosion of sparks and a faint, comedic squeal from him. I swear I have all my limbs, he yelled, hopping on one foot while trying to avoid further sparks. Sorali's ears twitched with amusement. Mostly, she said, mostly intact. That's good enough for today. As they descended toward the city center, Sorali reflected on the years she had spent rebuilding her life in solitude. The humor of their interactions, the human's persistent awkwardness, Ilara's teasing, her own sarcastic commentary, was a balm she hadn't realized she needed. You too, she said, gesturing broadly at her daughter and the human, could either destroy the city with your antics or make me laugh until I forget it's ruined. Try to aim for the second one. Ilara rolled her eyes playfully, and the human gave a sheepish thumbs up. The streets here were filled with signs of old industry and strange alien tech left to decay. Sorali led them past a series of conveyor belts that still hummed faintly, moving nothing but dust and tiny robotic components. These belts are useless, she said. They've been recycling themselves for decades. If they had hands, they'd be applauding the chaos. The human crouched to inspect a small sphere rolling along the belt. It's cute, he said. Sorali raised an eyebrow. Cute. It's a self-replicating maintenance bot. It's supposed to rebuild a city, not moonlight as a toy. Ilara laughed and nudged the human. See, even your tech has a sense of humor here. Night fell over the city, and the trio settled among the ruins, using scraps of energy panels to generate heat and light. Sorali watched the human attempt to make a fire, accidentally activating a small gravity pulse that sent their supplies floating in a slow, comedic orbit. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted, she said sarcastically, reaching out to grab the floating rations. Ilara shook her head, laughing. You really do like chaos, Mom, she said. I've missed this. Sorali's ears twitched as she smiled faintly. Missed you too, more than you can imagine. As the night deepened, strange auroras danced across the sky, streaks of green and violet bending in impossible arcs. The human pointed at them. What is that? Sorali smirked. Atmospheric particles, electromagnetic interference, and some old Wartech residue. Also pretty, so don't trip while staring. Ilara leaned back on a patch of warm crystal sand, laughing softly. We're alive together, and you're lecturing him on not tripping. Typical mom. The human looked between them, bewildered but happy. I don't think I'm ever leaving this planet. Sorali tilted her head, ears flicking. Don't tempt fate, human. This planet has a sense of irony sharper than a plasma blade. You'll survive, probably, but it won't be graceful. He laughed, and the sound mingled with Ilara's and Sorali's own chuckles, forming a small constellation of warmth in the cold ruins. By dawn, they were ready to move again, heading toward the heart of the city, where most of the old defense systems still lingered in semi-functional form. Sorali led with precision, her long ears alert for the faint hum of unstable energy fields. Ilara followed, her confidence a contrast to the human's tentative steps. Try not to invent new ways to break the planet, Sorali said with a grin. We have enough chaos already. The human smiled sheepishly. I'll do my best, he said, and she believed him. Not because she trusted him completely, but because the laughter they shared made even improbable trust feel natural. As they approached a towering structure of cracked crystal and metal, a low rumble echoed from within. Sorali paused, sniffing the air like an ancient predator. Old war bots, don't touch the red lights, or the green ones. Or anything, really. The human nodded earnestly and Ilara muttered, this is going to be fun. Sorali's lips twitched with the hint of a smile. Yes, fun. In a city full of hazards, that counts as victory. And so they pressed onward, laughter and sarcastic warnings trailing behind them. A small trio navigating a world scarred by war but softened by humor, human awkwardness, and the improbable reunion of a mother and daughter. Sparks flickered, drones hummed, and gravity occasionally hiccuped. But for the first time in years, Sorali felt something like hope threading through the ruins, a sense that even amid chaos, there was room for joy, companionship, and the strange, unpredictable magic of surviving together. The day began with the faint hum of Lorinthia's unstable energy fields, a sound that was part planet, part leftover war tech. Sorali led the way through the ruins toward the old command center, her long ears twitching at every whisper of motion, every flicker of light from damaged circuits. Ilara followed closely, moving with the fluid confidence of someone who had faced death and returned, while the human trailed behind, arms flailing slightly as he tried to balance on the uneven ground. Careful, Sorali said, a dry smile tugging at her lips. We don't want to add human decapitated by levitating metal to today's excitement. The human gave a small, nervous laugh. Noted, he said, eyes wide. I'll try to survive, mostly intact. They reached a plaza where gravity fluctuations caused fragments of crystal and debris to float lazily in the air. Sorali knelt and tapped a control panel still partially functional, making the floating debris stabilize in a delicate orbit. See that? She said, pointing. That's art, or a trap, depends on how you look at it. Ilara laughed, stepping carefully between the floating fragments, while the human gingerly followed, muttering about how this was definitely not the Earth I signed up for. Sorali smirked. Trust me, human, every planet has its quirks, some just explode more politely than others. Inside the command center, the remnants of old war machinery hummed faintly. Sorali scanned the room with her ocular implant, noting the flickering energy conduits and half-active defense drones. These are the old sentries, she said, gesturing to the hovering bots. They've been asleep for decades, dreaming of laser battles and occasionally zapping the unlucky. One drone sparked and the human jumped back. Friendly, Sorali added dryly. Ilara elbowed him. Relax. You're mostly safe as long as you don't touch the red buttons. He nodded, muttering about how red buttons always sounded like bad ideas in human history. They approached the central chamber, where a massive holographic map of the galaxy still floated, glowing faintly. Sorali activated the interface, and the image of Lorinthia at the height of the war shimmered across the room. This, she said, is what was lost. Entire fleets, countless lives, strategic positions, all gone. Ilara touched the hologram lightly. And yet here we are, somehow surviving, somehow laughing. Sorali's ears twitched, the corners of her lips lifting. Laughing, she repeated, because it's the only sane response when chaos is your daily companion. The human leaned closer to the map, pointing at a cluster of planets. So these are former battle zones, and that one there was your daughter's last mission. Sorali nodded, a faint shadow crossing her face. Yes. And I thought I'd never see her again. Alara stepped forward, placing her hand on her mother's. And yet you did, and I brought a friend, she said, glancing at the human who waved awkwardly. I think it's technically my fault that half the war tech still hums, but mostly we're here. Sorali studied them both, the humor of the human's awkwardness, the light in her daughter's eyes, the improbable reunion of human and alien forming something neither of them could have predicted. She realized for the first time in years that grief wasn't a permanent state. It could evolve. It could bend, like the floating debris outside, into something lighter, something capable of carrying hope instead of just memory. You too, she said, have a talent for chaos and survival. Mostly survival, sometimes chaos, and very occasionally grace. Alara laughed, nudging the human who blushed and promised to aim for the survival part. They moved through the chamber toward a side corridor where old recovery drones had been stored. Sorali activated them, and the machines stirred to life, lights blinking, arms stretching. We can use these to rebuild, she said. Mostly to rebuild without electrocuting ourselves. Caution optional. The human tripped over a drone cable, sending it into a slow-motion pirouette. I'm adding clumsiness to the team dynamic, he said. Sorali shook her head, smiling. I'll allow it, it's surprisingly effective. Hours passed as they repaired and reactivated portions of the old facility. Laughter echoed between the high walls, punctuated by sparks, minor explosions, and occasional sarcastic remarks from Sorali about the human's competence. Mostly intact, she reminded him repeatedly, and every time he laughed, a little warmth settled in her chest. She realized the city, the planet, and perhaps even herself were beginning to feel alive again, not just remnants of war. As evening approached, they reached the observation deck, where the sky stretched in impossible arcs of violet and green auroras, shimmering above the fractured landscape. Sorali stood silently, ears quivering with the subtle vibrations of the planet beneath them. It's beautiful, the human said, voice barely audible. Alara leaned against her mother, smiling. And dangerous, Sorali added, but we're still here. That counts as victory. They watched in silence, a trio bound not just by blood or circumstance, but by the improbable joy of surviving together, laughing together, and daring to hope together. The human reached out tentatively, touching a floating shard of crystal. It hovered in midair, reflecting the aurora's light across his face. I never imagined this planet, these people, he said. Sorali tilted her head, ears flicking. None of us did, but somehow it worked. Somehow survival and laughter coexist. Alara leaned closer to her mother. And that's the lesson, right? No matter how broken things seem, we find a way. Sorali nodded, a soft smile touching her lips. Yes, and occasionally it involves humans tripping over everything in sight. They descended from the observation deck, moving toward a newly repaired docking bay where transport ships hummed in anticipation. Sorali guided them with care, making subtle adjustments to floating debris and energy fields, her ears flicking at every subtle disturbance. We leave some chaos behind, she said, and take some with us. It's a fair trade. Alara laughed. Mostly harmless chaos, she added. The human nodded, still awkward, still blundering, but undeniably part of the team. I think I can handle that, he said. In the final moments before departure, Sorali looked at her daughter and the human, her heart swelling with a strange mixture of pride, relief, and humor. Years of grief, isolation, and survival had transformed into something new. A family forged across species, laughter, and shared experience. The city around them hummed faintly, alive with repaired energy conduits, floating debris, and echoes of the past. Sorali realized she had changed. The constant weight of loss had lifted slightly, replaced by cautious hope, patience, and the understanding that chaos and joy could coexist, even on a planet that had once seemed irrevocably broken. As the ship lifted off, leaving the fractured city behind, Sorali felt the wind, or charged particles, depending on how literal you wanted to be, brush against her face. She looked at Alara and the human, both leaning slightly awkwardly over the rail, eyes wide with wonder. "Hold on tight," she said with a grin. "The universe doesn't do soft landings, but it does give great stories." And with that they soared into the sky, the auroras stretching behind them, laughter mingling with the hum of the engines. For the first time in years, Sorali felt the past settle, not like a chain around her chest, but like a foundation beneath her feet. The reunion had healed what she thought was irreparable, laughter had pierced the years of grief, and the future, uncertain and chaotic as it was, felt astonishingly bright. The human tripped again. Ilara laughed. Sorali smirked. Chaos, she realized, was not just inevitable, it was worth it. And somewhere between improbable survival, humor, and love, they had found not only each other, but a world ready to be lived in again.